So in ancient paganism, we don't get too stuck on names or theatrical stories. Instead, basically there's a lot of layers to this, so just bear with me what I'm about to say. There's entities, and these entities are the source of all that they entail for everything else, everything else that is of them, basically. Let me just give an example. The sun's an easy one. So there's this source where all suns everywhere in the universe come from. Just like there's a source where all moons come from, all storms come from, all fire comes from. I could go on and on and on and on. But literally everything in the universe, there is a source, an entity, where it stems from. Everything we trace back to all these different entities. Some pagans give them names and call them gods and goddesses, which is totally fine. Really, really ancient paganism doesn't always, doesn't always portray them in that light necessarily. They portray them more so, like I said, as an entity. But it's still basically the sire of everything to like kin, exact like kin, of it. And if that wasn't complex enough, all these different entities also were birthed from one source in the very center of the universe. It's kind of like the Big Bang Theory, but not quite. There is, in the very center of the universe, this gigantic ball of light, and right underneath it, there is a giant black hole that is the source of all light and the source of all dark, coexisting in a very rare harmony, because usually these two butt heads. In the center of the universe is the only place where it's said that true pure dark and true pure light can coexist in a rare harmony like that. So basically you've got, literally everything has to either be made up of light energy or dark energy. So you either have to come from this gigantic sunlight, it's not really technically sun, but this gigantic ball of light, or you have to come from this gigantic black hole. And in certain circumstances, you can actually be a mixture of both. And in that case, you kind of come from the harmony that they create. But even all these great massive entities, call them gods and goddesses if you please, have to come from the center. Everything has to come from the center. When you die and get reborn, you have to go back to the center. The center of the universe is what dictates everything. Whether or not you'll live again, or whether you stay in the spirit realm for a while. If you did something really bad and you got a threefold, it's going to, obviously be the one to dictate what your threefold is going to be, especially if, whatever threefolds you serve. A lot of people think that, they go throughout life and, every time they do something wrong, they're just going to immediately serve a threefold or whatever. It is not so. Sometimes threefolds need to be served over a long extended period of time. And so even after you die, a lot of times you still haven't served all your threefolds. Now, there's several different things that can happen. The universe gives us every chance millions and billions sometimes, well, I don't know how many exactly, a lot of chances. Every chance that we need, probably more than we should, in my opinion, be allowed to have, but I'm not one to judge, before our spirit is completely annihilated and ceases to exist. Okay, so these threefolds are a chance to learn from our mistakes, and you know, you get threefold after threefold after threefold, and either you are punished in the spirit realm in sort of a prison-like or dungeon-like kind of way, where, you know, you're given, you know, it might come as a surprise to you, but spirits can feel pain just like we can in the realm of the living. The dead can feel very real pain, physical real pain, okay? So a lot of times you are sent to a place like that to feel the pain. There's actually a god that or goddess actually, that I was told of in ancient paganism. Now, there's so many different tribes and so many different, you know, dead languages, that this is just one name for something. But I was told that Kratos is the Punisher in the spirit realm. And basically, if you go to Kratos and it is your last chance and you fail and you do not learn your lesson, she eats you. That's just kind of it doesn't mean that's always going to happen. There's a lot of other predators and protector type warrior spirits out there that could eat you. Doesn't have to be Kratos, but you know, I guess if you do something really, really bad, you go to her, you know. So that is just a kind of a way to personalize things. But, you know, you don't have to personify if you don't want to. All that you need to know is there's really no said place to burn, basically. You can be in the realm of the dead, or it can be in the realm of the living. In fact, a lot of times you're sent to live a life, especially if you've done something terrible, you're sent to live a life in immense pain. Basically, your only purpose in that life is to live only so that you can suffer. You know, really, that is for the most evil of evil people, okay? If you aren't pure evil, then of course you are given options. First off, do you want to even live again? Okay. Second off, what are these options that you're handed? Which life do you want? You know, there's certain things that you have to face because there's certain things you're going to have to learn. You know, living a life isn't just to live it. You're given a task, you're given a purpose, and you have to be taught things, okay? But you're still given options, okay? Provided you're not pure evil. That being said, like I said, pure evil things. If you're pure evil, your chakras, you know, eventually wither away to pretty much nothing, and you become very weak. And, you know, usually you're dealt with far before you are so weak that you can't even move, that you can't even, you know, just kind of floating out there in abyss. Okay, usually something gets to you before that, but if you're just left to kind of float out there, you won't be able to even move, not even as a spirit. You won't be able to move, you just be idle, stuck there, you know, in this votic space, you know. And you'll eventually wither away and die on your own. But typically, like I said, something gets to you before that. And you literally cease to exist. You no longer exist at that point. So, in the realm of the dead, I know this is another layer here, but in the realm of the dead, you can technically die again. Because, yeah, technically you're still quite, you know, dead compared to physical realm, but your spirit's still alive. Your actual spirit can die and cease to exist. So, you know, again, there's so many different layers. I couldn't talk about them all, but the main thing that you need to know is the center of the universe is where we go to not only get reborn, but to mend and heal. to learn from our mistakes. And, you know, we're given, like I said, way more chances than we probably should be given to right the wrong and learn from our mistakes and that sort of thing. But what people don't understand is that the center is where all things basically came from. Even all these entities, gods, goddesses, whatever you want to call them, came from the center. And, you know, what people don't understand is that, you know, you have to, you don't have really a choice. If you want to keep on, you know, existing and learning and growing, you have to go back to the center after every life. You have to go back to the center in one form or another. You know, there's a task that you're given, and part of that task is to help the universe continue to spiral and continue to turn. Everything, every little thing, you know, no matter how big or small, depends on one another to turn and spiral in harmony. And, you know, even us, which we are tiny compared to those gigantic entities, and especially compared to the center of the universe, but everything depends on everything else in order to have a existence. You know, if too much is, you know, lost or die off, then there creates this massive imbalance there. And the only way to get rid of that imbalance, unfortunately, is for anything that has lost its path permanently, pure evil, to cease to exist. But when it ceases to exist, it's actually absorbed by something. So it's either absorbed by a protector, an entity, the center itself. So even though your spirit died, that energy eventually is kind of sucked back to something else. Like I said, if it's just floating out there in the middle of nowhere and it's allowed to die on its own without anything consuming it, it'll get sucked back to the center and it will become a part of the center again. But it will never be allowed to be its own. It probably will never allow to be its own separate individual spirit again. But at least that energy that the universe needs to exist is not lost. And it basically fuels, it's like food. It fuels the center and replenishes it so that anything that dies off, the energy is not wasted. Now, I've been asked a lot, you know, what about parallel universe? No, that's kind of, you confuse that with past lives, you know, and present lives. There can be paralleling and from life to life, but there's absolutely no way that an individual spirit, I can't have me in 16 different realms all at the same time, because that means my spirit would be split 16 different ways. Your spirit has to remain whole. And so your spirit, especially in a physical realm, your spirit has to be where your body is. And so, you know, there's only one of you, only one. And that is like that for everything. Okay, you can't be in that many places living those many different lives. You know, that's for theatrics. You know, it makes a great story. Here's Dark Materials. I mean, my goodness, and all the other stuff. But you know, that one's, I guess, the most recent. Makes a great story, but you know, that's not the way it works, unfortunately. Just like there's only one you, there's only one center, there's only one universe. So that's the basics of it. There's so many different layers to this, but those are the basics.